It was the Greek philosopher Plato who said art imitates life, the observation that a creative work was inspired by true events, based on a true story. Life events inspired a new feature film by Baton Rouge actress Jency Hogan and her photographer husband Aaron. They are collaborating on projects in their cinematic compound, including one that they didn't really see coming. I sat down with Jency and Eric Hogan at their home in Baton Rouge. It's home, but also acting studio, photography studio, and rental space to a hair salon. It is unique.
We built it to be a creative hub for Baton Rouge, and that was the dream, right?
It feels like it.
Yeah, it's like we wanted to be like, you know, like paint, like pouring out of the windows down the street, like beautiful colors, just like immersing into the community. People could come here and learn photography, they could learn acting, they could learn filmmaking.
It all began to develop after they met.
We met at Whole Foods and I married her 6 months later.
That was 11 years ago. 3 years before, Jency had returned from 8 years trying to make it as an actress in L.A. She worked, but it wasn't her ideal.
In L.A., you know, you're a small fish, big pond, and I was getting better auditions here in Louisiana, and so I decided to move home. And Louisiana, as you know, has a strong film industry. I started, you know, working pretty quickly after I got home from LA. It was like, oh my gosh, I get to audition for really big movies. And my first audition was with Brad Pitt or something. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, why didn't I move home sooner? Louisiana is awesome. And I got home and immediately, you know, booked my first role, or one of my bigger roles with, you know, Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. And then I got to work with Bruce Dern for 5 weeks as his hit woman in a movie. And when I met Aaron, I really couldn't believe there was someone who was he was half entrepreneur, half creative. And I was like, that's impressive, you know, like, wow. Because he was turning his photography into a way to actually make a living.
It was a cute operation. We would go everywhere together, all the events. And I was always listening to her complain, though, about her movies that she was not getting impressive roles. So I said, why don't we start making our own films? And I was beginning to become interested in cinematography at that time. This was 2013. And she loved period pieces, loved horseback riding, and wanted to make historical dramas that were loosely based on reality, not completely fact-based. We made several short films until we even considered the idea of making a feature. It was a huge jump.
A huge jump in life-altering ways. First, that movie, Days of Daisy, has already premiered in Hollywood at the Dances with Films Festival. Jency is actor, producer, part writer of the project.
It's interesting because I, you know, worked in LA, but then to come back and have full circle moment of like, oh, now I'm presenting in LA, right. The place I was trying to conquer for so long or bust into.
Presenting and acting. And
yeah, and now I'm doing all the things, you know.
Yeah. Days of Daisy is about a single woman reaching 40 and wanting to have children. Her boyfriend doesn't.
So you never want kids since we're assuming things from our date?
Okay, can we slow down? All right, because this is happening really fast.
I'd love to be with you for a year, but then I brought this up then. Dream world, it's you and a kid.
Days of Daisy is personal. It's based on the idea that, you know, in order to be a parent, you don't necessarily have to have kids biologically, but you can parent in untraditional ways.
And it's something that you all have experienced yourself.
The personal side of the story is that when I met Jency, I had one stipulation, that we were never going to have kids. And I said, essentially, choose me or choose kids. And I was so determined, I took care of it medically before we got married, so that she knew that I was not joking around.
Over time, though, Jency began wanting children. Aaron wouldn't budge. The idea of the film was born right there.
A lot of the conflict comes between actual dialogue that Jency and I have had in real life. So it's loosely based on our story. There is a lot of differences. It's more comedic. There's
upbeat.
Yeah, it's very upbeat.
But not so upbeat, at least for Aaron, that when he watched it by himself and before anyone else, something didn't feel right about the character playing him.
Literally, watching it in this living room right now, I started feeling like it was no longer my story. Something was shifting in me. I felt like this guy was selfish. The guy representing me I saw as a selfish human. Not that all people that don't want to have kids are selfish, but I saw my own story in a way that I'd never seen before.
Interesting.
So I started having a heart change. And it eventually led to the current situation where we're actually actively trying to have a child.
After all that.
After all that. So the art, you know, sometimes it can have a huge impact, you know, on people's worldview, on how they see the world, how they experience life. And that's why we make movies, right? Is to, you know, first off, we make them for entertainment. So we sit back and we relax and we enjoy that world that the filmmaker created, or the filmmakers created. But we also, you know, we learn a lot of things.
Days of Daisy will premiere at the Louisiana Film Festival in December, then be out on iTunes, Amazon, and go from there. Their advice to others is to dream big. It is certainly paying off for them.